It is 17 minutes past 5 in the morning somewhere out in the pitch-black expanse of international waters. The ocean is swallowing all the light, and a chilling scene is quietly unfolding. This is not some scripted blockbuster thriller cooked up in a studio. This is the heavy, breathing reality of raw metal crashing into unbreakable focus. Deep inside a United States supercarrier, a lonely blip flashes across a radar screen. It is reckless, daring, and moving with the kind of speed that screams destruction. Watch the velocity climb on the glowing displays. 20 knots. 24. Suddenly, 26 knots. A rogue mass of steel is hurtling directly toward the heart of an American carrier strike group. Out here where the water rules everything, this is no simple navigation glitch. This is a direct, calculated insult to supreme maritime power. The incoming vessel is completely dark on the radio, using the sheer momentum of its hull to draft a lethal threat. On the bridge, the quiet is heavier than any explosion. Every single person is watching those invisible lines pull tighter and tighter. One tiny miscalculation right now would set the entire sea ablaze. Who is crazy enough to play chicken with a 100,000-ton floating fortress? And why, against such a blindingly obvious threat, does the giant refuse to even flinch? Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to dive deep into a psychological war zone where cutting-edge sensor tech strips bare every dark intention from Iran. We are going to break down exactly why refusing to pull the trigger is actually the most devastating strike of all. Before we unpack this masterclass in modern warfare, drop a comment and let me know which country you are tuning in from today. Alright, let us get into it. If you want to grasp how terrifying this moment is, you have to understand the mathematics of aggression. In the Navy, the numbers always tell the absolute truth. When the clock hit 17 minutes past 5, the Spy 1 radar, the absolute all-seeing eye of the Aegis system, caught a distinct change in the water. This was not a ghost or a rogue wave bouncing back a signal. It was a solid, undeniable lock. Why would a mystery boat suddenly gun its engines to 26 knots? Heavy metal does not just leap forward in the middle of an empty sea unless someone is gripping the throttle with a very specific, very dark goal. Above the surface, the water is like black glass. Empty. Quiet. But down in the nerve center of the carrier, the computers are practically redlining. The exact collision coordinates are recalculating by the second, and the gap is dropping fast. In the language of war, steering a direct path straight at another ship is a silent but deafening threat. The intruder is deliberately locking himself onto a fatal course, desperate to see if the big guy will blink. He probably thinks his tiny, agile boat can embarrass the king of the sea. But he picked the absolute worst dance partner on Earth. The carrier is not just watching him. It is devouring his ship with digital sensors. Every single invisible pulse his boat gives off, every fractional change in his speed, is being ripped apart and saved in our permanent hard drives. He is so proud of his 26 knots, completely oblivious to the fact that thousands of American sensors have already written his digital obituary. He thinks he is the predator, but he is just a mouse sprinting straight into the jaw of a lion that does not even need to move. The gap keeps bleeding out. 5 miles. 3 miles. 2 miles. At this distance, if the guy at the wheel simply sneezes, everyone dies. Yet the carrier just keeps cruising. That total lack of reaction is the most bone-chilling weapon we have. It tells the intruder, we are the mountain, we do not move, and if you want to end your life today, we will sit here and watch you do it without blinking. At 8 minutes past 6, the mystery officially died. There was no more guessing. The most brutal optical sensors on the planet, cameras that can literally see right through the pitch black and the weather, snapped directly onto the incoming threat. The video feeding back to the bridge was crisp enough to count the weld marks on the metal. They saw the sharp angles, the distinct mast, and the glaring, naked missile launchers. This was not a lost fisherman or a cheap patrol raft. This was a machine built to kill. Nationality Iran? That single word sent a silent shockwave through the strike group. Nobody yelled. Nobody panicked. Because out here, a piece of cloth on a mast does not rewrite the rules of momentum. It just finalizes the signature on the death warrant of the intruder. The contrast is almost comical. On one side, you have a Nimitz-class marvel of engineering, 100,000 tons of pure American wrath. On the other, an Iranian warship about the size of a metal dart, trying to bully an absolute titan. It is not brave anymore. It is just embarrassing. The rogue ship refused to back off. Instead, it dug its nose deeper into the waves, throwing up massive, angry wakes just to prove a point. They were redlining their engines just to look tough. You could even see men spilling out onto their decks, and they were not there for the sea breeze. Hands were resting on weapons. They were locked and loaded. And the radio was dead silent. Out here, silence is not an oversight. It is a weaponized statement. By ignoring international calls, you are screaming that your actions are all the talking you need to do. But they forgot one crucial detail. Playing the silent game just made our digital evidence against them absolutely bulletproof. Down in the Combat Information Center, the team tightened the leash. The tracking gates snapped shut. Every single radar pulse the Iranian crews sent out was stripped, analyzed, and logged by our computers in milliseconds. We were not just watching them through cameras anymore. We were literally inside their electronic nervous system. We knew their next move before the thought even formed in the minds of their crew. That is the true terror of deterrence. When your enemy knows literally everything you are doing, acting tough is just a waste of energy. The captain of the opposing ship thought his silence made him intimidating, but he was just turning his crew into target practice for the Aegis operators. And while the little boat was throwing a temper tantrum in the water, the supercarrier hit them with the hardest punch imaginable. Nothing. Not a single degree of course correction. Not a tiny swerve to avoid them. In a massive ocean, choosing to do absolutely nothing is the loudest flex of power you can make. Turning away would have told them we were nervous. Turning away is a conversation. But when a floating city keeps its exact path, the message is undeniable. We are the rock, you are the water, and water always shatters on the rock. We trap them in their own mind game. We force them to make the final move. They charged at 26 knots, and we just stared back like an immovable god. The space between the ships was vanishing. This was no longer a simulation. One shaky hand on the wheel would spark a global war. The American captain stayed entirely quiet. He did not need to scream on the comms. Decades of relentless training meant every sailor already knew exactly what to do. The intruder was burning out its engines to look aggressive, while we just sat there applying crushing, silent pressure. It forces a man to wonder if we are ignoring him because we do not care, or because we already have him in the crosshairs. The answer was both. Our weapons did not even need to point at them to make a promise. Our sensors had already measured the exact drop of water between us. The little boat thought it was testing our nerve, completely unaware it was tying its own noose. At 34 minutes past 5, with the distance shrinking to a fatal margin, the strike group unleashed a surgical dose of psychological terror. Up on the massive flight deck, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter spun up its blades. The turbines screamed into the dawn, kicking up violent winds. This was not a friendly flyover. This was the angel of death taking flight. The chopper climbed into the sky, ignoring the clumsy charge of the boat, and seized the high ground directly above the action. Looking through the forward-looking infrared sensors, the helicopter crew had such a clear view they could probably see the sweat on the faces of the enemy. Then came the ultimate reality check. The helicopter hit them with a laser designator. A razor-thin green beam of light painted itself right on the glass of the bridge below. If you work on the water, that green light is your ultimate nightmare. It does not burn your skin, and it does not blow a hole in your hull, but it carries the weight of 1,000 bombs. It whispers right in your ear that you are fully locked into a kill chain that moves at the speed of light. One twitch of a finger inside that helicopter, and your entire world becomes hot vapor before you even hear a sound. The helicopter finally broke the silence, broadcasting a brutally calm message in English and Farsi. There was zero anger in the voice. Just pure, icy professionalism. You are operating in a dangerous manner. Change your direction right now, or own the consequences of what happens next. On the infrared monitors, you could see the panic explode below. Guys were scrambling, ducking their heads, trying to hide from a beam of light they knew could vaporize them instantly. It was a masterclass in total submission, written in green lasers and pure grit. By 42 minutes past 5, the tough guy act completely shattered. No guns went off, but the sound of them giving up was deafening. The sensors instantly picked up a massive drop in the wake behind the rogue boat. They had slammed the brakes. Their speed bled from 26 knots down to 20, then 15. All that aggressive swagger evaporated into a frantic scramble to get out of the kill box they just walked into. The mouse finally blinked, and it was humiliating. Trying to save a microscopic shred of pride, the boat banked into a slow, wide turn, trying to make it look like they just happened to be going that way anyway. Finally, after hours of acting like a tough ghost, a voice cracked over the radio. They tried to claim they were just on a routine patrol. It was a pathetic, flimsy lie meant to cover up the fact that they just panicked looking down the barrel of an American helicopter. We did not even bother mocking them. We just hit them with the heavy dose of freezing reality. We told them we had every second of their little stunt recorded, told them to keep their distance, and told them to get out of our way. It was the verbal equivalent of a door slamming in their face. They realized their little toy boat and their fake discipline were completely useless against the absolute, godlike awareness of the Aegis system. Watch as the little ship runs away. The same guys who were puffing their chests out are now throwing tarps over their weapons like kids trying to hide a broken lamp. The distance opened back up. 5 miles, then 10 miles. The threat vanished, leaving behind a brutal lesson. You do not play games with the empire that owns the water. By 6:30, the sea was perfectly calm again. The carrier strike group kept sailing like absolutely nothing had happened. For the crew, it was just another morning shift. But for the rest of the world, it was a terrifyingly beautiful reminder of what real power looks like. We did not win by blowing them out of the water. We won by completely owning the space, the clock, and the mind of the enemy. Real strength is not making a ton of noise. It is having the terrifying discipline to just sit there and not pull the trigger when the other guy is begging you to do it. By holding the line and recording every single mistake they made, we turn them into prisoners of their own foolish game. If you take anything away from those 45 suffocating minutes, let it be this. In a world run by data and sensors, absolute, unflinching discipline is the deadliest weapon on Earth. The carrier keeps moving, the ocean keeps breathing, and the foolish will always run back to the shadows once they realize there are some mountains that arrogance and cheap steel simply cannot move.